What if I told you the glass of water you drink at the wrong time of day could be one of the biggest reasons you're waking up at night? And no, this is not about drinking less water. In fact, for many people, the problem is the exact opposite. They're trying to be healthy. They're trying to stay hydrated. But without realizing it, they may be sending their bladder into overtime while the rest of the body is desperately trying to sleep. And if you are waking up once, twice, maybe 3 or even 4 times a night just to use the bathroom, stay with me, because what you're about to hear could completely change the way you think about water. Pause. Welcome back. Tonight, we are talking about something millions of people struggle with, but rarely talk about openly. Nighttime urination. That frustrating moment when you finally fall asleep, only to find yourself awake again, staring at the ceiling, walking down the hallway, wondering why your body refuses to let you rest. And here's something important. Many people immediately blame aging. Others blame the bladder. Some fear something serious is wrong. But what if part of the answer is hiding in a habit you repeat every single day? Your drinking routine. Before we go further, I want to hear from you. How many times do you wake up at night to use the bathroom? 1, 2, more? Leave your number in the comments. You may be surprised by how many people are going through the exact same thing. And if nighttime trips have become a regular part of your life, keep watching carefully, because the most surprising discovery comes later. And trust me, it is not what most people expect. Transition. Now, let's begin with something many people never hear. Your body does not process water the same way all day long. Think about that. Most of us were taught a simple idea: just drink more water. And yes, hydration matters. But timing matters too, because your body works on a rhythm, a schedule, an internal clock. And when your drinking pattern fights against that rhythm, your sleep often pays the price. During the day, your body is built for activity. You move, you stand, you digest food, your circulation is active. And your kidneys, those remarkable filters working quietly in the background, are handling fluid efficiently. But evening is different. As daylight fades and the body prepares for rest, several internal systems begin slowing down. This is not weakness. This is design. Your brain and body are preparing for repair. Muscles relax, heart rate gradually changes, and your urinary system also receives signals that nighttime is approaching. The body is trying to create stability, trying to protect sleep, trying to reduce unnecessary interruption. But modern habits often interfere with that natural process. And one of the biggest problems? Late hydration. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but water is healthy. Absolutely. No question. The issue isn't whether water is good. The question is, when is your body being asked to deal with that water? Because many people spend the entire morning under drinking. Then afternoon arrives, dinner arrives, evening television begins. And suddenly they start catching up. A glass here, tea there, another bottle beside the bed. And without realizing it, they may be creating the perfect setup for a restless night. Emotional connection. Maybe this sounds familiar. You settle into bed. You finally get comfortable. Perhaps your knees stop aching. The room becomes quiet. You drift off. And then, an hour later, your bladder calls. So you get up. You return to bed. You settle again. And just when sleep begins to return, there it is, again, night after night. And eventually it becomes more than an inconvenience. Because interrupted sleep affects everything: energy, mood, focus, patience, even the way we enjoy our mornings. Many people don't realize this, but poor sleep has a ripple effect. You don't just feel tired. You feel worn down, and sometimes defeated. That's why this conversation matters. Because better sleep is not only about comfort, it is about quality of life. Building curiosity. Now here's where things become interesting. The bladder itself is often blamed for nighttime urination. But sometimes the bladder is not the main problem at all. Sometimes it is simply responding to instructions coming from elsewhere in the body. And this is where drinking habits begin to matter more than most people realize. Imagine pouring water into a sink. If you pour steadily while the drain is working efficiently, everything flows normally. But if you suddenly dump large amounts at the wrong time, the system struggles. Your body is similar. It prefers rhythm, consistency, predictability, not late-night overload. And this leads us to the first major mistake many people make. Mistake number 1, treating thirst and habit as the same thing. This surprises people, because evening drinking is often driven less by physical need and more by routine. Think about it. A drink while watching television, a refill during dinner, tea before bed, water beside the pillow. Not always because the body is desperate for hydration, but because the habit feels automatic. And habits are powerful. They can feel natural even when they are quietly working against us. Now, this does not mean you should stop drinking. Please don't misunderstand that. The goal is not dehydration. The goal is smarter hydration. And later, we're going to discuss the strategy that completely changes how many people manage nighttime bathroom trips. But before we get there is something else almost nobody talks about. A hidden reason why some people continue waking up, even when they think they are drinking responsibly. And once you understand this, the entire picture starts making sense. Because it may not be just about how much you drink. It may be about what your body is doing with fluid after the sun goes down. Part 1, closing tease. So in the next part, we're going deeper. We'll uncover the surprising relationship between hydration timing, evening habits, and the body's overnight fluid signals, and why one simple change earlier in the day may help your nights feel completely different. Don't skip ahead, because what comes next is where this story starts getting real. Before we continue, I want you to think about something. How many evenings have looked exactly the same? Dinner finishes, the house becomes quiet. You sit down to relax. Maybe the television is on. Maybe you're scrolling through your phone, and without even noticing, the drinks begin. A glass of water, tea, juice, maybe another refill. And because it feels harmless, because it feels normal, we rarely stop to ask an important question. Is my body actually asking for this? Or am I simply following routine? Welcome back, because now we move into the part most people never consider. And once you understand this, your relationship with water may never be the same again. Transition. Earlier we talked about how the body follows a rhythm. Now let's go deeper. Many people assume thirst is a perfect signal. Drink when thirsty. Stop when you're not. Simple. But as the years pass, the body doesn't always communicate so clearly, especially later in life. And this is where one of the biggest hydration mistakes quietly appears. Not drinking too much water overall, but drinking it at the wrong time, and the body notices. Think of your kidneys as workers following a schedule. During active daytime hours, they are prepared for heavy lifting. You're upright, moving. Your circulation is active. Your body is processing food and energy. Fluid moves efficiently. Urine is produced and eliminated during waking hours, the exact time nature intended. But evening tells a different story. Your body begins preparing for restoration. The nervous system slows. The digestive system winds down. And ideally, your urinary system should begin quieting too. But modern drinking habits often interrupt that process. And this brings us to the next major discovery. Many people accidentally train their body into nighttime urination. Yes, train it, without realizing it, because the body learns patterns. If large amounts of fluid repeatedly arrive late in the day, your system adapts around that routine. The bladder begins dealing with heavier nighttime workload. Sleep becomes fragmented, and gradually, waking during the night starts feeling normal. But normal does not always mean necessary. Audience engagement. Let me ask you something. Do you usually drink most of your water? Morning? Afternoon? Or after dinner? Tell me honestly in the comments. No judgment, just curiosity, because people are often shocked when they start paying attention. They realize, I barely drank all morning, and then I drank nearly everything at night. And that realization changes everything. The front-loading concept. Now here's the shift that surprises many people. Instead of pushing hydration later, the body often responds better when hydration happens earlier. Think about it like charging a battery. You wouldn't wait until the last possible second. You charge early. You prepare ahead of time. Hydration works similarly. When fluid arrives steadily during the first half of the day, your body has time. Time to circulate it, time to process it, time to remove what it doesn't need. And by evening, much of the work is already finished. This is what many people never experience, because their drinking pattern is reversed. Small amounts early, large amounts late, and unfortunately, nighttime becomes the cleanup shift. Now I know some people get nervous here. They hear this and think, so should I stop drinking in the evening completely? No, not at all. This is not punishment, and it is not about fear. Your body still needs hydration. The goal is balance. The goal is strategy. Because there is a major difference between thoughtful hydration and panic hydration. And yes, panic hydration is real. You've probably seen it. Maybe you've even done it yourself. The day gets busy. You forget to drink. Then suddenly evening arrives and you remember, I haven't had enough water today. So you start making up for lost time, bottle after bottle, glass after glass. The intention is good, but the timing creates trouble, because the body doesn't erase physiology just because the clock says bedtime. If fluid enters late, the kidneys still have work to do, and eventually, the bladder asks for attention, usually when you least want it. Story segment. I remember hearing from a viewer who described her evenings almost like clockwork. She woke tired, drank coffee, stayed busy, barely touched water through the morning. Then after dinner, she became determined to hydrate properly. By bedtime, she'd consumed more than half her daily fluids, and every night looked identical. Sleep, wake, bathroom, back to bed. Then repeat. At first she blamed age, then stress, then the mattress. But after simply changing when she drank, not dramatically changing how much, her nights gradually became calmer. Not perfect overnight, but noticeably different. And sometimes that's how real progress works. Not magic, not instant miracles, just better alignment with how the body already works. Building suspense. But we're still missing something, because timing alone doesn't explain everything. In fact, some people already avoid heavy drinking before bed, and they still wake up. Which raises an important question. Why? What is still filling the bladder? And this is where the story becomes genuinely fascinating, because the answer may be hiding somewhere you would never expect. Not in your glass, not in your kitchen, but lower, much lower. Your legs. Yes, your legs. And before you laugh, stay with me, because what happens inside the body after lying down may explain why some people feel perfectly comfortable at bedtime, yet find themselves awake an hour later. The evening habit setup. But before we uncover that, we need to talk about something else quietly sabotaging sleep. Evening beverages, because not all drinks behave equally, and many nighttime favorites create more bladder activity than people realize. Tea, coffee, certain soft drinks, even some healthy beverages. Why? Because some drinks do more than hydrate. They stimulate, they encourage urine production, or irritate the bladder. And sometimes the problem isn't simply volume, but chemistry. Now this doesn't mean your favorite drink is forbidden forever. This isn't about guilt, it is about awareness. Because when people start noticing patterns, they often make discoveries on their own. They realize, every time I drink this late, I wake up. That awareness becomes powerful. And powerful change begins with noticing. Emotional layer. You know, losing sleep can be deeply frustrating. People joke about it sometimes. But when interrupted sleep becomes routine, it affects far more than nighttime. You wake exhausted, your patience shrinks, your concentration suffers. Even joy can feel harder to reach, and many people quietly accept this as part of aging, as though broken sleep is simply the price of getting older. But what if some of that struggle isn't inevitable? What if the body has been giving signals all along, and we simply never learned how to read them? That's why this matters. Not because there's one magical trick, but because understanding leads to better choices. And better choices often lead to better nights. Part 2, closing tease. Now in the next part, we reach the discovery that surprises almost everyone. Why fluid may be moving through your body while you sleep. How your legs and circulation may be involved. And the simple evening adjustment that many people overlook completely. This final piece ties everything together, And once you hear it, the nighttime puzzle begins making sense. Before we begin this final part, take a moment and think about your last few nights. Did you go to bed feeling completely fine, only to wake up later with an urgent need to use the bathroom? Not thirsty, not uncomfortable, just suddenly awake, wondering where all that urine came from. If that sounds familiar, this final section may explain more than you expect, because what we're about to discuss surprises almost everyone. And once people understand it, many never look at nighttime bathroom trips the same way again. Welcome back. Let's bring this story together. Earlier we talked about hydration timing. We talked about late drinking habits. We talked about how the body prefers rhythm rather than overload. But now we arrive at the missing piece, and strangely enough, it may begin in your legs. Yes, your legs. Main reveal. Throughout the day, gravity quietly does its work. You're standing, walking, sitting, moving through normal life. And during those hours, fluid naturally shifts downward. For some people, this shift is barely noticeable. For others, especially after long periods of sitting or standing, a small amount of fluid may collect in the lower body. Maybe you've noticed socks leaving marks, mild ankle puffiness, shoes feeling tighter by evening, legs feeling heavy late in the day. Many people dismiss these signs. They don't seem important, but the body notices, and nighttime changes everything. Because the moment you lie down, gravity changes its influence. The fluid that settled lower during the day no longer stays there as easily. It begins redistributing, returning towards circulation, and eventually, the kidneys receive more fluid to process. Now think about the timing. This happens while you're trying to sleep, which means the bladder may begin filling even if you stopped drinking hours earlier. And suddenly, that middle-of-the-night bathroom trip makes a little more sense. Audience connection. I want to ask you something. Have you ever noticed your feet or ankles looking slightly swollen by evening? Or your shoes feeling different at night than they do in the morning? Tell me in the comments, because many people connect those dots for the first time during conversations like this. And awareness matters. Sometimes the body whispers long before it shouts. Eyelid redistribution explained simply. Let's keep this simple. Imagine carrying a small amount of water in a sponge all day. While upright, much of that water stays lower. But lay the sponge flat, and the water redistributes. The human body is obviously more complex than that. But the idea helps explain why nighttime urination is not always about drinking too much. Sometimes it's about where fluid travels, and when. This is why some people say, I barely drank anything before bed and still woke up. They aren't imagining it. The body may simply be processing fluid that shifted after lying down. And once you understand this, the next step becomes incredibly important, because this is where small evening habits may help the body work with you instead of against you. Practical strategy. One simple practice many people find helpful is reducing long periods of completely motionless sitting late in the day. Think about typical evenings, television, reading, phone scrolling. Hours can pass without movement, and during long sedentary periods, fluid can remain pooled in the lower body. Now, this doesn't mean evening rest is bad. Rest matters. But awareness matters too. Sometimes gentle movement, a short walk, or simply changing position can support circulation before bedtime. And for some people, brief leg elevation during the late afternoon or early evening becomes another useful habit. Nothing dramatic. No complicated equipment. Just allowing circulation to work before sleep rather than during it. Again, this is not magic. And it is not a substitute for medical care if symptoms are severe or persistent. But many people discover that small routine changes produce surprisingly meaningful results over time. Bringing everything together. So let's put the entire picture together. Because by now, the puzzle pieces should be starting to connect. First, hydration matters, but timing matters too. The body often handles fluid more comfortably when drinking is steady earlier in the day, rather than heavily concentrated late at night. Second, evening habits deserve attention, not because water is harmful, but because overload close to bedtime may challenge the body's natural overnight rhythm. And third, the discovery that surprises so many people. Nighttime urination may not always begin in the bladder. Sometimes it begins with fluid movement happening elsewhere in the body, long before sleep even starts. And when these pieces combine, late hydration, heavy evening drinking, long sitting periods, poor sleep habits, the result may feel like a bladder problem, when the real story is more complicated and far more manageable than people realize. Emotional closing. You know, there is something comforting about understanding, because uncertainty creates fear. People begin imagining the worst. They feel frustrated, embarrassed, exhausted, and sometimes alone. But knowledge changes that feeling. Understanding gives people options, and options create hope. No, the body isn't perfect, and aging brings changes. That's real. But many changes become easier when we stop fighting the body's rhythms and start understanding them. That is where progress begins. Not perfection. Progress. One better night at a time. Strong engagement ending. Now I want to hear from you. Which idea surprised you most? The timing of water? The evening routine? Or the connection between circulation and nighttime bathroom trips? Share your thoughts below. I read your comments. And honestly, some of the best conversations happen there. And if you know someone who's constantly waking at night and blaming themselves, send this video to them. Sometimes one small piece of information can change an entire routine. If you found this helpful, support the channel with a like and subscribe, because we have more conversations ahead about sleep, aging, daily habits, and understanding the body in ways most people never learn. Until next time, take care of yourself and give your body the understanding it deserves.